What's going on, everyone? It is the Derf, and in today's video I am bringing you guys a double special ammo fire and ice build. This build is going to feature some really great weapons, putting out huge DPS numbers. You're going to be able to print orbs of power, and I'm going to show you guys how to not run out of ammo while using this build. So if you've been looking for a way to blend fire and ice together here in the Edge of Fate, this build is for you. Huge damage potential, a combat bow that not a lot of people are talking about, and two very solid special ammo weapons that will print you orbs of power, as well as basically give you unlimited transcendence if you want. So if you do find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Please share it with the Guardian in need. My goal is to help as many people as possible. Now, without further delay, Fire and Ice Double Special Weapon Edition. Let's go. On our double special Unoya Prismatic Warlock build, we got to talk about the super real quick. If you want a super that you are going to decimate the field with, Song of Flame is your choice. If you want a super that you're going to be able to consume for one of our weapons of choice and use that at a more frequented rate, then Winter's Wrath is your choice. Winter's Wrath is not used for damage. If you're using Winter's Wrath, it's because you're not going to use Winter's Wrath. When we talk about the weapons, we'll go over exactly what that means. So it really depends on you. If you are using your super because you're doing an activity that requires you to use your super on a boss, for example, or you're flying solo and you want that in your back pocket, Song of Flame is the one to use. For abilities, we're going to be going with Phoenix Dive, Burst Glide. Me personally, I still like my Arcane Needle, although to maintain the fire and ice objectivity of this build, you could easily go with Incinerator Snap or Penumbral Blast. Either one will work. For the grenade, I recommend either the Cold Snap Grenade or the Healing Grenade. Now, this is going to depend on what aspects you pick. For aspects, first up is going to be the Hellion. Can't have Unoya without having the Hellion, otherwise what is the point? Activate your class ability to summon a Solar Mortar that lobs flame projectiles at distant targets. Targets damaged by the mortar are scorched. The Hellion damage is scaled by the enhanced benefit of the grenade stat. Again, if you've been living under a rock or haven't played the game in a while and aren't up to snuff, your grenade now scales with all turrets. That makes Hellion more powerful than ever. Next aspect is completely up to you. Personally, for me, I like Feed the Void. The reason for this is I need my health to regenerate, and I want my grenade to regenerate even faster. Also, when you have Devour, any kill that you get extends Devour, returning your grenade energy even more rapidly. Now, if you don't have a problem staying alive with this build, or you have it tweaked to your liking and you want to maintain the fire and ice aspect of this Prismatic Warlock, you could easily throw on Bleak Watcher. Now, if you put Bleak Watcher on, make sure you put on the Healing Grenade. The reason for that is the Healing Grenade still has statistically the lowest cooldown of any grenade that you have in your Prismatic class. So, Bleak Watcher, Healing Grenade, Devour, and Feed the Void, put on your Cold Snap Grenade. Either one will work with this build. For fragments, first up on the list, and also optional, Facet of Mending. Now, if you have Feed the Void on and you don't have issues staying alive with it, you can switch this out. Facet of Mending is great because it cures you. However, you could easily swap this out with Facet of Command. Facet of Command will auto-reload your weapon and grant you increased stability, aim assist, and airborne effectiveness. So this will depend on if you have Bleak Watcher and if you have issues staying alive with this build. Again, this isn't really a one-size-fits-all. The key here is Fire and Ice. Fire and Ice with our Hellion, scaling with our grenade damage. Again, all these things you have to consider when making this build. However, the way that I have it set up gives me increased survivability, and it's what I think you should try to put on first. Next up is going to be Facet of Hope. While you have an elemental buff, your class ability regenerates more quickly. Again, another reason why you need this on is because of the Hellion. So put on your Facet of Hope, get your cure when you dive to the ground with your Phoenix Dive, and any kills you get with your Hellion, again, stack with Facet of Mending. Next up is going to be Facet of Purpose. Picking up an Orb of Power grants us Restoration or frost armor. With restoration, your health and shields regenerate and cannot be interrupted by taking damage. However, with frost armor, you get damage resistance and it grows stronger the more stacks that you have. Again, you're going to have to decide what you want to do as far as the super, and that's going to affect how Facet of Purpose functions. Next up is going to be Facet of Ruin. Now, with this, either way you go, whether you go with your Solar Super or your Stasis Super, you're going to get benefits from Facet of Ruin anyways. So whether that's Shatter damage, Solar Ignition damage, or a combination of both, depending on if you have the Bleak Watcher turret aspect equipped, either way, you can't go wrong. Facet of Ruin is going to be pretty much necessary along with Facet of Hope. For stat distribution, I recommend stacking heavily into weapons, grenade, and then spreading evenly through your class, your super, and your melee. The reason that you're going to spread evenly through the other three stats and focus heavy on your grenade and your weapons is because of the ammo generation as well as the grenade damage scaling that you're going to need to do with a double special build. Now, depending on the weapons that you pick, it's going to determine how much you're going to dump into any of these stats between your grenade and your weapons and then filtering through. At a 50, for example, with your super and having Winter's Wrath as your super, you're going to get it back much quicker than you would for Song of Flame. However, if you take away from your class, that's going to affect how often you proc your Hellion. Now, since we're not running a OG Solar Warlock build for this Fire and Ice build, which, to be honest, wouldn't really make sense anyways because there'd be a kind of an overload of Solar and not enough of the Ice. You're going to have to think about how you want to stack up. In other words, at 50s across the board with your melee, your super, and your class, you should be able to comfortably cycle through your abilities. If by some chance you get some insane ideal rolls with your armor, you could beef these up and maybe even get them at 70s, with the exception of maybe melee. Melee is probably the one that if you have to forego any stat, that's the one to forego. Health might be more important to you with this build. Again, really depends on if you have Feed the Void on or not, and if you're doing frost armor or restoration. So kind of keep that in mind, but grenade and weapons you want to dump heavily into regardless. For weapons, you have 4 main options for the kinetic slot. If you are picking Winter's Wrath or you just really like Aegir's Scepter, put on Aegir's Scepter in the kinetic slot. Final blows of this weapon slow nearby targets. It's a great way to condense the nonsense, and I'm telling you, if you haven't played around with this in a while, it clears out ads like that. If you don't want to use your exotic in this slot, make an appearance or give Tina an appearance in this build. Put on Chill Clip and just watch the heads freeze to death. You can also throw on Lionfish or Burden of Guilt. Either one of these is going to be able to stack with the stasis aspect, the freeze aspect of this. Lionfish, of course, rolls with Chill Clip, and it also has this little nifty thing right here, Lead from Gold. Picking up heavy ammo also grants increased ammo to this weapon. So you have additional ways to regenerate some of your special ammo, at least for this weapon, which again, if you're trying to freeze and scorch everything to death, that might be very, very useful. For the energy slot, you got 3 main options here. I'll tell you which one is the least effective, which probably will surprise you. Return Memory is my pick here. One of the reasons it is my main pick here is because of this right here, Blast Distributor. Dealing splash damage grants an improved bonus to your grenade stat. Now, I don't have the exact facts on what your bonus to your grenade stat is, but any, add on to my damage and or grenade regeneration that I can get, I'm going to take. But Incandescent is going to be needed if you're going to have Blast Distributor. So any splash damage that you do because of Incandescent will contribute to your grenade stat. That's really key here. The other key thing here is you're going to have to throw on abundant ammo. Getting your ammo generation at or above a 50 is going to be very, very necessary in order to not run out of ammo. Again, running a double special means you've got to be conscious of your ammo. Other options. A really good option is a Barren Action. You can roll a Barren Action with Heal Clip and Incandescent, which means every time that you reload, which means you're going to have to spam your reload, you'll heal yourself. Could be really useful if you have problems staying alive. Lord of Wolves. Little known fact about Lord of Wolves is it's got 100 ammo generation, which means you are spawning special bricks constantly. The drawback is Lord of Wolves is probably the worst selection for this entire build. One of the reasons is it got hit with a major nerf. It doesn't do the damage that it used to do. You saw people soloing activities bosses, dungeons with Lord of Wolves not that long ago, Lord of Wolves doesn't hit for nothing anymore. So you really have to be wanting to goof around and use up your exotic to roll with Lord of Wolves. However, specifically because of the ammo generation of this weapon, I have it as an option. Return Memory is my first pick, Aberrant Action is my second, and Lord of Wolves is my third. In the heavy slot, you have a ton of different options, and I'm going to rapid fire them right now. For stasis, you've got Submersion, you've got Salvation's Grip, you've got Winter Bite, and you've got Ulterior Observation. All of these need to have some sort of stasis synergy with them in order for them to work. Now, the reason that Submersion makes it here in this build is because with explosive bolts, it's just too good to put down. However, Salvation's Grip with its ability to stun overloads, Winter Bite with its ridiculous damage every time you fire it, and then of course Ulterior Observation because of its ease of use, and also this little perk right here. If you've seen my previous video, Envious Arsenal, here, I'll show you right now. So ammo generation at 42, now it's at a 62. If you got Envious Arsenal on this, you will get an additional 20 for your ammo generation, which could be huge if you are finding yourself running out of ammo. So Ulterior Observation makes it for right that reason. You could throw on Rhyme Stealer, you could throw on Dragonfly, get some additional splash damage, but either way, those are your stasis options. For your solar options, pretty straightforward. Throw on Unwavering Duty, it's still the king of machine guns. You can put on the Wolfsbane, although I'm not in love with it. It just kind of fits here because it is a solar, kind of build into the build kind of thing, but you're going to have to get up close and personal, and that might be difficult for some of you. And then Dragon's Breath. Big shout out to Dragon's Breath on this one because anything that you scorch contributes to literally everything else, including your ammo generation. So you're going to have to make some choices on how you want to build around this. Before you get into the armor, make sure that you throw on your last discipline armor so you get the set bonus of Power Loader. Picking up an Orb of Power grants special ammo progress. I know we're not going to be taking advantage of the first part of this, so unless you want to deviate away from the double special power of this build and throw on a kinetic or a primary ammo weapon, I suggest you clear up your inventory and throw on 4 of these pieces so that you can get the Orb of Power bonus. The Orb of Power bonus is approximately 6% of your entire special ammo bar. So 10 Orbs of Power, 10 kills, ammo brick, or 2, or possibly even 3. Just really depends on the situation. So Eunoia makes another appearance on one of my builds. It has been the crutch for so many warlocks out there, and for very good reason. The Hellion projectiles deal increased damage the further they travel, eventually fracturing into scorching shrapnel. Now, I have seen, and I'm not going to say this because it doesn't technically say this in the description, I've seen the solar shrapnel track 2 targets. So if you got a particularly swirly target, or you're dealing with Taken like you are in the Altars event for Festival of the Lost, these track. Don't know why it doesn't say they track, but they do track. And anything they touch scorches. So literally this thing, I mean, in Conquest and things like that, Eunoia has been crutched for so many Guardians. For the rest of the armor, go ahead and spec into whatever general armor mod that you need. In the helmet, make sure you put on Special Ammo Finder and Ashes to Assets. Throw on your Thermodynamic Siphon so you can get Orbs of Power from all your weapons. In the gauntlets, make sure you put on 3 Firepower mods so you get an Orb of Power every time your Eunoia procs a kill from your Hellion. And in the chest armor, you have some decisions to make. You can put on a solar ammo generation mod to increase the regen rate of your solar ammo weapons. Or, excuse me, the regen rate of kills from your solar weapons. I said that wrong, my bad. And 2 damage resistance mods. However, you can make an argument to put on 2 of these, and then you'll regenerate it even faster. For the legs, go ahead and put on Absolution ×2, and put on your Harmonic Scavenger so you increase the amount of ammo you gain when you pick up an ammo brick for your solar weapons. In the class item, make sure you put on the class font, kind of a no-brainer there since we're trying to spam our class ability as often as possible. Reaper and Bomber. Bomber is important here because it reduces the cooldown of our grenade when using our class ability, not necessarily because we need any help, but it just helps us cycle through our abilities faster. For the artifact, let's talk about it. Unstoppable sidearm, kind of a no-brainer. Overload rapid fire, kind of, but don't really need it. If you got the Bleak Watcher, it doesn't really matter. That'll stun your overloads, etc. and so forth. And also, if you're switching out your Age Receptor for consuming your super, you'll be able to deal with overloads just fine. Now, anti-barrier bow. Now, maybe it's just a bug for me. I don't know. But using that crossbow pierces barrier champs. I did test it, and it did work for me. You may or may not have that same luck. So before you get at me in the comments, I'm just letting you know. For me personally, this does pierce barrier champs, and I'm not really sure why. In the second column, make sure you put on Flame, Fiber, and Freeze. I also recommend Diviner's Discount, although you could put whatever you want as your secondary option. In the third column, Fever and Chill. Reciprocal Draw, since we're sporting a sidearm. Refresh Threads, because we want our elemental pickups. Elemental Coalescence, because again, we want our elemental pickups. And Energy Acceleration, because we are using a micro missile frame in our sidearm. In the final column, you can roll with Radiant Shrapnel and Shield Crush, since you will be getting some kind of buff depending on the super that you get. You could also make an argument for Argent Quiver. You can also make an argument for Frigid Glare. It really just depends on you, but I think these two take the cake. So there you got it, the double special ammo Unoya build, whatever you want to call it. Twice the fun, twice the power, but you got to be conscious of your ammo. Now, one of the reasons that I think this build works in a lot of activities is because of the utility of it. However, some of the harder endgame activities, this might not be the safest play, especially if your health is at a dismal 14 like mine. You can alleviate that by putting on Feed Devour. You can't alleviate that by, maybe changing out one of the mods or one of the armor mods to Better Already or Recuperation, although Recuperation is better. It really just depends. Let me know in the comments how you guys would change this up. Let me know how you can build further into this for yourself personally. It's not a one size fits all. I gave you a bunch of options to pair with this. I will say though, if you do try the OG solar version of this, for whatever reason, it just doesn't quite work the same. That's what I found personally. I think it's because of Feed the Void, if you're running Feed the Void, but also I think it's the utility of the rest of the build that makes it just a little less potent. Now, again, the goal of this build is to run double special and be able to put out damage with all your abilities and your weapons at an obscene rate over like a primary ammo weapon. So if the first thing that you want to tell me in the comments is, Durf, just put on something else and it'll work better, I get that, but that's not the point of the build. The build is to run double special. And again, if you're goofing around with your friends, if you're doing fire team activities where you're in a fire team, maybe not necessarily running solo, as long as you're conscious of champs, this build will work so long as you're not just completely disregarding your ammo economy. And that's one of the challenges of running double special. Now, you see people everywhere rolling double special into ultimate activities and getting to the end in virtually no time at all with no problems. But again, you have to have the armor, you have to have the mods, you have to have the consciousness of what you're shooting at and when you're shooting at it and how much you're shooting at it. You don't really have to worry about that if you're running double primary. So let me know in the comments what you guys think, how you would change it up. Also, let me know what you think of Submersion. I got this randomly. It's not the ideal roll, but I've been having some fun with it. And if you did find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you know a Guardian out there who's looking for a way to do a double special Unoya build, please consider sharing this video with them or send them my way. My goal is to help as many people as possible. Shout out to Lloyd Christmas. That is the inspiration behind the color scheme of this suit. And if by chance you guys are looking for a non-toxic gaming community, I highly recommend jumping into my Discord. It is booming with people, everyone from new lights to known Sherpas, everyone just helping everyone, and that's what it's all about. Farm that candy, get those items that you're looking for, especially the exotic class items, and do it with some friends who are like-minded like you. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to switch back to some other highlights, and we'll wrap it up. So one special consideration for this build, on top of being conscious about your ammo economy, is this is more of a fun build than it is like a meta build. I've done different fire and ice special builds before where different things with like the artifact and perks like that have played a more prominent role. but the way that this build is set up and the different mods you can put on your artifact to stun like champs and things like that, it really comes down to like special considerations as far as like where you're going to take this into. Obviously in Festival of Lost activities like this, it's going to be just fine. In activities like Onslaught, if you are running with a fire team and you guys have complementary strengths, this will be a welcome addition because of the freezing aspect as well as the additional tick damage you're going to get. So those are things that you're going to have to decide when making this build and, you know, tuning it up to fit your playstyle. Like I said, I gave you a bunch of different options you could roll with in all 3 weapon slots, so it's really going to depend on you, the player, the preference. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. Let me know what changes you've made and, you know, how it's kind of working for you. Me personally, with double special builds, I find that some of them are more niche than anything, and this is more of a fun build than it is like an ultra serious, get you to the end, soul raid, you know, all this, you know, woo-woo stuff that, you know, Guardians everywhere like to say, oh, this build will take you to the promised land no matter what. This build is just mainly about fun and, you know, instant DPS potency, but there are special considerations. So, if you did find anything helpful with this video, hopefully you guys like and subscribe, share it with the Guardian need. Thank you guys for your patience when I'm getting these build videos out and all of your support. I will see you guys next time. Take care.